This video is for week 1 of Objects in Python, Part B. To make objects, the first thing we need is to design the class that they're made from. Classes are sets of attributes and methods that go together, that make sense together. Every object will have all the attributes and all the methods that we define. To define a class, we need a name, and it should be in upper camel case. Notice it starts with a capital letter, and this is the only type of thing that does these class names because they are very important. We need to be able to spot them in a program. Also, when you write classes, they are in the left of the file. They're not inside of anything else, not inside of main or other functions. They're tabbed all the way to the left. Here's a template for the actual syntax. The word class, followed by the class name, notice the capital C, and then in parentheses, the word object, and then a colon. And here's an example of a class called vehicle with a capital V. So it's class vehicle object colon. Notice that this is placed above main. And we like to keep main near the top, but we're going to have to squeeze the class definitions above that for now. Once we have the class definition, then we have to create objects of that class. That is called instantiating an object. And here's the syntax for that. A variable name, we make this up, equals, and then there's the class name followed by parentheses. And you might recognize the parentheses as the sign of a function call. Yes, this calls a constructor. I'll talk about that in a minute. And here's the example filled out a little bit more. So we have the class definition of vehicle. And then in main, we say car1 equals vehicle, and then car2 equals vehicle. This makes 2 vehicle objects. And on the next slide, we're going to start filling in these 3 dots, what actually goes in the definition of vehicle. Classes are made of attributes and methods. We're talking about the attributes for starters. We have a playing card class, and it has 2 attributes, suit and rank, and every object of that class will have values for these attributes. Here's one particular one that has hearts and 5 as the values of the 2 attributes. These are the values that are stored in this playing card object. Now, when we make an object, I mentioned that it's really a function call to the constructor. This gives us an opportunity to build the object however we want because we write the constructor. The constructor is always called underscore underscore init underscore underscore and has self as the first argument. I'm just going to call it init. There's no return value because we know what it makes. And it's called automatically whenever you ask for an object of this type, whatever type this init function is in. Okay, so here is a definition of the vehicle constructor. You'll notice we have 2 parameters besides itself, and let's see how they work. So when you make a call, you say vehicle, Ford Fiesta, the first argument, Ford, well, first of all, the vehicle calls init. So when you say vehicle down here, it calls the init, which is the constructor. And then the first argument, Ford, matches the first parameter. And you'll see in the code that this gets stored in self.make. That's the attribute value in this particular object that we're making. The second argument gets matched with the second parameter, and that gets stored over here in self.model. And now you might ask, what does self do? That is the object itself. So when we run this to make car1, those parameters go in the car1 object. When we make car2, the parameters go in self, meaning the car2 object. Think of self the way we think of the word I. Each person says I, but they mean somebody else depending on who's talking. Self means the code that you're running, the object that that code is in. And whenever you talk about attributes in an object, you have to say self to refer to that attribute instead of our old way of talking about variable names. So this works out like this. We have a vehicle class with 3 attributes. We instantiate one car object and put in values for that. We instantiate another car object and put in values for that object. And here's the same thing looking at the code. So we have the vehicle class defined. We call car1 vehicle and fill in one object. We call it again to get another vehicle object called car2. And that's it for this video. We'll pick up methods in the next one.